I've just invested $37,000 into silver, or £28,000 if you're from the UK. I think now is the time to buy silver, and in this video I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to talk about why I'm buying silver, why I think the demand is growing and the supply is falling, and discuss the bigger question, is inflation rising? Welcome back to the most transparent finance channel on YouTube, where I document my entire financial journey, the ups, the downs and everything in between. I'm working on my financial goal of having £1 million invested within an ISA in the UK. I'm going to show you what I'm buying, what I'm selling, and then hopefully you guys can take from this and achieve your own financial goals. I want to help as much people make as much money as possible in the most tax efficient way. The main reason I wanted to make this video is I'm so frustrated by the kind of financial advice people are giving that I wanted to show some transparent, honest and real investment advice and show you how I'm making money and show you some real solid buys. The majority of videos on YouTube are telling you to buy companies like Tesla, who are now falling off a cliff, and they're telling you to double down and invest more money. And when you look at how much they've got in the account, they've got under $200. Yesterday I heard a guy talk for 5 minutes about why he's buying Microsoft and he only owns one share, and the reason was because they're getting into cloud computing. So please like this video and hopefully we can raise awareness and get some people investing in real solid investments. So I've just bought nearly $38,000 worth of silver miners. Now you might be thinking, why have you bought silver miners and not physical silver? Well, the reason I bought miners is because they generally move more than the price of silver. And at this stage in my portfolio, I'm willing to take more risk with the potential of more growth. Of course, for another option, you could buy something like a leveraged silver share. I really like the idea of miners. Of course, if you wanted a safer option, you could just buy physical silver. And also, owning a silver bar is pretty damn cool. Now, I'm actually a strong believer in investing in the UK at the moment. Last year, when the pandemic hit, I invested heavily into shares based in the UK. Also, with the uncertainty around Brexit, they were all down and I had a feeling that they were all going to come up over the long term. Solid, big companies that are going to recover after the crisis. But although that's done great and I made almost a 50% profit on companies like Aviva and Taylor Wimpey, I need to spread my risk. And I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket. So this investment right here makes up about 28% of my portfolio. If you want to see my full portfolio, I'm going to do a full breakdown soon. Make sure you subscribe because that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch. And you can join my journey to £1 million. So with that being said, let's dive in and discuss why silver. So silver is seen as a safe haven investment in uncertain times. It's a hedge against inflation and the collapse of a currency. So if the dollar was to collapse, you've moved your money into a much safer commodity. When there's uncertainty in the economy, silver is a great option. In this video, we're not going to look at the charts and predict patterns. We're going to look at the solid prices and reasons to buy. So let's look at reason number one, which is inflation rising. There's a common misperception that silver actually does the opposite to the stock market. If the stock market was to crash, silver price would also crash at first. But silver is more about the reaction to the event and what happens afterwards. So what is inflation? Inflation is a rate in which prices for goods and services increase. It's one of the key factors for financial well-being because it affects what consumers can buy for their money. If there's inflation, money just doesn't go as far. Inflation is expressed as a percentage up or down. For example, if inflation rises 2%, it means people need to pay 2% more for their gas than last year. And if wages don't keep up with inflation, purchasing power and standard of living falls. So you may have noticed recently the prices in supermarkets are starting to rise. For example, if we look at a 30-year period, we can take a look at some of the everyday items and how they've increased. For example, from May 1989 to May 2019, the price of a loaf of bread went from 49p to £1.9. Chicken went from £1.89 to £2.77. Milk 28p to 44p. Oranges 17p to 38p, and last but not least, the price of a pint of beer went from £1.6 to £3.69. When there's an economic crisis, governments will try and solve these problems by increasing the supply of money. And although we're hopefully not going to go that far, this can also lead to hyperinflation. That's when the price of goods and services are so out of control, it's referred to as hyperinflation. It can happen if a government prints too much money to cope with its spending. As there's a large amount of money around, prices increase, and so the government prints more money. It creates a spiral that's incredibly difficult to get out of. The most famous example came when, after World War I, Germany was left with such high debts that the government printed more money to pay them off. Silver, on the other hand, has historically been seen as a great hedge against inflation. Inflation will erode the power of paper currency, and silver can provide protection against such losses in purchasing power. So in a nutshell, if inflation goes up, then so will the price of silver, which is great for us. Which leads nicely onto point number two, which is the demand for silver. Now, the uses for silver are vast, and as lockdown ends, consumer spending is predicted to go through the roof. In the UK budget, for example, it's predicted that spending is going to get back on track and the economy back on track by mid-next year. So the demand for silver products is expected to rise dramatically. So post-COVID and stimulus, we're expecting the prices of everyday products to go up. Sales of things like electric products, you've got jewellery, you've got electric cars and solar panels. And as the demand for things like solar panels and electric cars increases, then so is the demand demand for silver. Silver's also got a lot of everyday uses that you might not expect. Things like deodorants, batteries, 3D printing, water purification, and even food garnishing. In South Asia, there's a food called vark, which is a small little piece of foil that's added to certain types of food, which is completely harmless. And in fact, 250 tons are eaten this way every year. So as they eat more, we'll need more supply. Just kidding. But on a more serious note, one of the more in-demand uses for silver is antimicrobial coatings. Silver can be used to create a permanent layer of antibacterial protection on everyday items. Things like shopping carts or trolleys, you've got handles, medical workstations, and it's even going into things like tables in restaurants, everywhere you can think of. As there's now going to be a growing market for antibacterial coatings and protection on products and surfaces, then that will also help the demand for silver. Now let's talk about the supply of silver. Miners are getting silver out of the ground at increasingly higher costs. And making a new mine takes years, and it just isn't that easy. They can be in quite remote areas like South America, and trying to get permission to knock down a rainforest or build roads is getting increasingly more difficult. It's not great for the environment, and as governments are becoming more environmentally aware, they're not wanting to let these kind of things happen as much, or they're making it much more difficult than it used to be. And that's let alone the time it would actually take to build a mine. The low price from 2013 to 2018 stopped the miners looking for new mines because the price just didn't support it. So in a nutshell, the demand is going up and the supply isn't going up to match the demand, which is only going to drive the silver price up. So let's move on to reason number 3, which is the price of silver. So when we talk about silver price, we need to take a look at what's happened in the past. The last time silver hit its all-time high was April 27th, 2011, with a high of $48, which is the highest price silver's ever been. If we don't take into account the 1980 hike, which would actually be much higher at the price of $120 thanks to inflation. In 1980, Herbert and Nelson took all of their money from oil that they'd inherited from their father and invested it in silver. They believed that silver would become a hedge against inflation, so they hoarded silver. And they actually ended up with 4.5 billion worth of silver before the governments intervened. They actually had more silver than most governments. This led to companies like Tiffany's taking out a full-page ad in the New York Times complaining that the silver price was too high that they couldn't make jewelry. Silver's currently priced at $25. If it repeated its pattern from 2011, it should end up around $65, and that could be by August 2022, which would be a fantastic return on our investment. So no matter when you're watching this video, take a look at where inflation's at, what the prices are, and then you can judge for yourself whether it's worth buying. Let me tell you who I bought, and as always, this isn't financial advice, this is my own personal decisions. You can copy along or not, it's completely up to you. So I'm going to talk in terms of pounds, because my portfolio is in pounds. I bought £20,000 worth of Hecla Mining, and I bought around £8,000 of Pan American Silver. Now I'm not going to dive too much into the particular reasons why. If you'd like me to do another video on the top picks to buy and the top mining companies, the top shares and what you should go for, let me know down below and I'll look at doing a video on those. In the coming months, I'm going to be looking at adding £130,000 to my portfolio or 180,000 US. I'm likely going to be investing the majority of that into silver, so make sure you subscribe and stick around for that because that's going to be fun. So overall, at the moment, I think silver is a great buy with the rising inflation, the demand, the supply, and I think the price has got some real room for growth. It's really interesting having silver miners, seeing the price go up and down like a yo-yo. If you're not very comfortable having the price go up and down so much, then buy something more stable like physical silver. So I hope you found this useful, and thanks so much for watching, and let's watch silver go to the moon!